Hey.
Hey there.
And we are live. All right. Hello and welcome to How Do Artists, a show that focuses on a single topic of conversation and asks the question, how do artists work, play, run their business, stay inspired, or handle the challenges and adversities from an artist's perspective? Our show will speak with a diverse group of artists and creatives, and you, as our listeners, will have a chance to ask your questions during our Q&A segment towards the end of our show. I am your co-host, Ryan Caldwell, musician and producer, and I am joined by co-host, artist, and illustrator Karlana Pedersen.
Thank you. Our topic for conversation today is, how do artists get published? Our guest today is Barry Greff. Barry Greff was exposed to travel and photography as a young child on family vacations. He began shooting and added underwater images to his portfolio and was first published in magazines in the 1990s. He created iconic land, sea, and cityscapes and intimate close-up portraits of animals, and of course his signature jellyfish. After decades of honing his craft, his work has been widely published and exhibited throughout the United States and internationally. Barry has received numerous fine art photography awards, including the Center for Fine Art Photography 6 times, and in various solo exhibitions throughout New York City. His work has been recognized by some of the fine art photography's world's biggest names, such as National Geographic, Magnum Photos, Photo District News, Ogilvy Mathers, Hahnemuhle Fine Art Paper, Canon Cameras USA, amongst others. Barry Greff was featured on Popular Photography's editor's list of the most top travel and wildlife photographers. Barry's popularity has continued throughout the pandemic with various photography exhibits, along with his work that will be exhibited at the Palm Room Art Gallery in Stuart, Florida, this month in December and March of 2021. Consistently searching for scenic locales, Barry Stephen Greff preserves the best that Mother Nature has to offer, capturing the Earth's natural beauty in its most pristine state. His images memorialize iconic moments in time, never to be repeated, and always in his own signature style. Let's welcome Barry Greff to our show.
Yeah.
Barry.
Thank you very much. I'd like to meet that guy.
Sounds very impressive.
He does. I really
does.
I'd like
Absolutely.
I'd like to hear what he has to say.
Well, I think we're going to today, aren't
Yes,
we, Barry?
We're going to try. We are going to try.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. You have you've got a lot of stories and a lot of information to impart on all of us. So
I do.
Let's find out. Let's describe yourself. Let's get into it and describe yourself when you were young, and tell us how that was and how your upbringing affected you as an artist. So if we were to kind of take a little bit of a piece of where it kind of began.
Sure.
Paint a picture for us, please.
Okay. Well, I have vivid memories. I grew up on Long Island, a town called Elmont, and my family traveled a lot. And my first camera, they used to use the ones that you had to look down into, not giving up my age or anything. But mine was a Kodak Instamatic, which had these flash cubes on it. And I remember thinking those flash cubes were like gold. There was only 4 to each cube, and it was only 1 shot for each. And so I really love those little cubes, I got to tell you.
So you started off in film?
I did. Oh, yeah. I was in film way into when I thought digital finally met or exceeded the quality, which I'm saying was probably about 2004 to 6, at about that time. So, yeah, anyway, that was my first camera. I saw my parents taking pictures on all our trips. And after they passed, I actually realized that one of them, I think it was my mom, was taking landscape shots as well. And I probably watched her doing that while I was young. And I picked up the camera, and I'd say back in college is where I started getting, really good at it and interested in it. And I went to the University of Miami in Florida, so I had a lot of opportunities. And I would drive south to the Florida Keys. I'd rent a camera, an Iconis, from Stephen Frink, who's a well-known National Geographic photographer. Mm-hmm. And I'd drive down, I'd rent his camera, I'd go take my pictures underwater, I'd come back and I'd give him my E6, which was the film at the time. It was this Fuji Velvia I used, which is a really cool little slide film.
Oh,
yeah. And, you had 36 shots and that was it. You didn't know what you got, and you came back, you were lucky you got something. If not, you had a fun dive anyway. So, that's how I started. And eventually I got from that into shooting above, on land. And that's really where it took off from there. Wow.
No, you're describing the film. And I remember, of course, film photography. My mom, it's funny, you said your mom shot film. My mom was a musician, but she loved photography and she was always meddling around in it and doing things. I just remember our refrigerator at one point had rolls of film in the refrigerator. And
that's how they sold them. Yeah.
Yeah. And my husband, when I met him, was a professional film photographer. So he, again, the rolls of film followed.
Right. That's right.
So now before the show, you and us, we all talked about how you got to where you were in this business, and you mentioned strategy. You had a strategy for getting published, for getting noticed. You had a couple of wonderful stories about that, and I guess the curiosity, I think, for myself is, how did you go about creating a strategy to get noticed by high-profile individuals in the industry and commercial clients? What was that process for you?
Okay, so I just put my pictures up and everybody just came. It was amazing. No, that's not what happened. That's not what happened.
If you put them up, they will come. Is that what
that's
you're
right,
saying?
Just like the movie. No, I wish. Honestly, I thought that. I really thought that, like I know a lot of people do, but people hear me. It doesn't happen that way, okay?
Thank you for saying that.
There's a lot of work. There's a lot of work involved. There's a lot of research. You got to be affirmative. You can't just, sit back and hope that it happens. And, and there's some luck, of course, with anything. But I started innocently enough when I first entered into a photo contest. And, I liked photography at the time, but I wasn't really serious. And I entered into this photo contest for a magazine called Zoo Life, ZOO. And I put up one of my animal images, a close-up, which is what my signature type style. And they didn't even notify me. And I get a copy of the magazine that month. And here, not only was I recognized twice in the contest, but they used my image for an entire half-page ad for their magazine.
Nice.
And I'm like, whoa, that was amazing. Here I saw my work published for the first time in a magazine, and I got to be honest, I got hooked. When I saw that was it for me. They got me hook, line, and sinker because it's really cool to see it for the first time, and to look great. And here I went and tried to buy every one I could find, just to have as many as I could. And so that's how I started. And then I did start working on a strategy, like you mentioned. There was a couple of ways that I did it. Once I got serious about my work and realized that other people appreciated it, like once that was published and that kind of thing. And then I started getting into some more contests where I was placing or winning or getting honorable mentions. I realized that the editors of these magazines thought my work was good as well, not just my family. So that was a good thing. And, so then I started doing more contests, but then I honed it a bit and I started sending it to, they're called juried competitions. So the bottom line is, you may win a little bit of money, but if they pick your image, you're going to end up in a gallery. And to me, I started thinking my work is fine art. I wanted to get into fine art galleries. That's who I wanted to be. And so I started looking, and these days you can just Google it. I mean, you could just Google everything. And one of the things you could Google is fine art photography contests. And you'll have so many that you'll never be able to sleep. You can put your work in. Okay. But what I did was I started going down the list and seeing who the jurors were. because to me, if you have a juror who's important in the photography world, not only is that credibility, but you can then put that person's name in your resume that, in my case, say it was Joyce Tennyson, or curator and WM Bill Hunt is a huge guy in New York, and he put my work in. Or Chris Pickler, who's Nazarelli Press, who does Michael Kenna's work, who's a very well-known photographer. And if these guys start putting your work into galleries, then all of a sudden you've got a string of important names, and it just helps you along. And that's what I did. And I did pretty well in them. I read very carefully, people. You read very carefully what they're looking for, okay?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to send animals to somebody, who's looking for landscapes, and vice versa, And here's another technique. You look at the juror and then look at their work. Now, okay, no, the juror does something and you think you could probably not do it better, but maybe show a different side to it, that he or she might appreciate.
Right.
You do that. All right. And again, you don't show something that you don't think that person's really going to hit off with, So
right.
That's where I did it on that side. I really looked at these gallery exhibits, and one after the other, I started picking them off, which was really nice. And you mentioned the Center for Fine Art Photography, and I had heard about it. Plus, it's got a great name. I mean, if you're in the Center for Fine Art Photography, your work is fine art photography. No, I mean they say
right. Makes sense.
Right? Yeah. I mean, they put it on the sign, so it must be true. So anyway, I went in there one time with some family. I had traveled a lot, and Colorado was one of my favorite places. So I went in there one time, and I was with family members, and I said, "Well, this is a cool place. I'm going to get in here." And it took me a year or two, but I now, like you said, I've been in there 6 different times, with 5 different jurors, and they're all respectable people. And so, I even went out there one time for one of the, the gallery openings. So, I've had work in Seattle, in Atlanta, which I went to. That was my first one, in a beautiful gallery. It was a $60,000 horse painting across the wall from me. So I knew I had made it. That was a real, that was a serious gallery. And in Denver, I didn't tell you this story, but the owner was an older man. He's since passed, but he was a contemporary of Ansel Adams. And back in the day, he said Ansel used to come in and try to have him sell one of his landscapes for $25, and nobody would buy it. Do you know that they sell for $500,000 now?
I know.
Right? So that was a hell of a story. And I was in that gallery, and I was on the wall with, he had Ansel, he had Sebastião Salgado, he had Ruth Orkin, he had some amazing photographers. And I was honored to be on the walls with some of those people. It was really nice.
That's fantastic.
And that's really what it is. It's targeting the right content. You can call them contests, but they're jury competitions, really. And, getting in them. And then, of course, making it known that you did get chosen for that. And that helps your credibility and moves you, up the ladder, if you want to call it that. So that was one of the 2 major things that I've done to move my career along. And it's been good. It's worked for me.
Wow. That's chocked full of information. And so if I were to organize that in my head, I would say research, strategize, target, and go after specific people within those jury competitions.
Yes.
Research what they do, what they're doing, what they like, and try to match what you have to those jurors.
Yeah, to their sensibilities. Yeah.
Yes, and appeal to their sensibility. I think that's a fantastic strategy. I think that that makes sense in my head.
Yeah, no, it does. It's common sense, but it's like I kind of learned it as I was going. And, you tend to want to see, well, how can you win money? Because everybody wants to win something when they get into a contest. But to me, it wasn't about winning a few $100s for being recognized. It was more about being picked to be in the gallery exhibition. And to be able to me, the money was being able to say that this big name picked my work. And therefore, in the future, I can use that over and over and over again.
You're playing the long game.
Yes, absolutely.
You've got to play the long game. And I think sometimes we, as creatives, can miss that.
Right. I think, and also the newer generation, I think, I hate to say it and generalize, but I think everything has been given so much more quickly. And I was at the end of that. I mean, I'm an older guy, but, I've also felt like I want it tomorrow, or yesterday. But it just doesn't happen. It's all hard work. And, but it does pay off if you do it, and this is not just yesterday. I've been, been published and I've been in galleries for, well over a decade, but it took me a while to get there. And it was a climb. It was a constant building and, improving on it. I didn't figure out the jury thing right away. I didn't figure out the juror thing right away, but eventually it started to make sense when I got into a gallery and it was Joe Blow who was the juror. And I'm like, who's Joe Blow? And if I don't know him, no one else is going to know him. So let me go now to the one that people do recognize the name,
Right.
So eventually that made sense.
It does. And I'm going to steal a question that Ryan had because it was so good. So I'm gonna steal this question.
That's okay.
All right.
I'm giving you permission.
I won't take you to court over it. It's fine.
You won't sue me over it, right, Ryan? Like, we're talking about strategy. You're talking about what it was that you needed to do in order to get to where you are. And this was very strategic. And in an age now where we have, like you said, so many things that are right here, right now, how has social media played a part in your strategy? How has it affected what you've had to do in order to remain current and in order to sort of move with that flow? How has that changed things for you?
Well, on one hand, it's made it a lot easier because, for example, when I started and I had to use those slides, I had to send those to be published. And therefore, you had to take a slide after you had it, made up. And then I had to do little labels to put on them. Okay. And, with your name and the date and the copyright. That. Oh, my God. And so
I was a model years ago doing that on the photos from the photographers that were sending us.
So that's right.
We had to label them. Yep.
Right. And then you have to put those in a plastic sleeve and send those out with the delivery memo. By the time you got one thing out, it was like, oh my God, I got to go to sleep now, So anyway, so digital comes in and wow. You could just send a file via email and you put all the information next to it and just send me an email back that you received it. Bam, thank you. I could do 100 of those in a day. Yeah. And, so it's really changed it in that regard. Now, come to today where everybody uses social media and you've got to be better than the other guy. It's exhausting again. It's gone full circle.
Wait a second. Are you saying there weren't hashtags when you were making those little labels? Or
Ryan, I'm afraid to tell you what there wasn't. I mean, I remember 8 tracks, my friend. You're
I know 8 tracks.
Yeah,
I mean, I've heard stories of them littering intersections.
That's right. That's right. And when I started out, it was the records, and I know they've come back, but So anyway, but now of course you have to be like you guys. You got a great podcast. This is as professional as I've seen.
Well, thank you.
Cool. Yeah, and so but your competition's not always like that, and so you got to be up and above, the last guy. And so look, and I got on here and I hear you guys streamline this and that one this, and I'm like, whoa. That's way over my pay grade, And so it's all really complicated now, and I'm doing my best to keep it current on all the different platforms and all that. And so it's kind of come full circle where now even social media is hard. But, I sold a piece to Australia a few months back. The guy loved the piece, but rather than create it here and ship it, I literally sent the image file over to the people in Australia. They put it on a big piece of glass, and bam, we had our piece, and it was so much easier. And better for me, I got the check at the end, and so it's and it's
already local. You didn't have to pay international shipping.
Just keyboard. That was it.
That's actually a really fantastic idea.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, it's great. The Ogilvy you mentioned, that was a few years ago, but that was also in the digital age. And I have this really cool picture that I took when I was driving in a cab, and I made the guy drive me around 6 times in order to get this shot through the window. And it was raining. It was New York City, and I got the marquee of Radio City Music Hall, and it's a really great image, and they loved it. But my point was, they paid a lot of money for it. But again, all I did was send them the file online. It was, wow, I would love to do more of this. So, that's the commercial end of it. That's actually even nicer than the fine art end, because fine art, you still have to do a lot of work. Usually, you're printing these things, you're sending them and all that stuff, shipping them, framing them sometimes, I'm dealing with some fulfillment now, which I'm hoping to avoid some of that. But, there's a lot of work around this. Anybody tells you can just show up as an artist and then it's going to happen, don't buy anything from that person.
That's not true.
No, don't buy anything from them. Turn around and walk away.
And I assume you're talking about all the hundreds of people that are selling stuff to creatives.
Right.
All day long on social media.
Of course.
You can do this and you can get that and you can sell this, and this is a new way to advertise, and this is a new way to sell your art here and over there. And
it pops up constantly, because when you are an artist, they know it because of the algorithms. They know what you look at. Right. And so every day, number one, they want to make me a better photographer. And I always I send an email back, and I send them one of my images. And I say, if you can improve on that one, buddy, let me know. Just to get a kick out of it. And I never hear back.
Harassing them.
I know. They're harassing me, so it's all fair.
Oh, yeah.
And then, but of course, like you said, to sell. Oh, do you want to make, $1 million as an artist in 10 minutes?
Yeah, of course.
The old saying is always true. If it's too good, it's not true.
Oh, yeah.
And there is something to be said about like what you did, and that was really taking time to develop your craft. I mean, I come from the idea that there is at no point in my life do I ever look at myself and my work and say, well, I'm done learning.
Right.
Or I'm not, or I'm finished figuring out how to do something, whether it's a different style or different technique, or learning from other people. I think that's really important.
I'm with you 100%. You're never too old to learn. I'm still learning every day, learning about shooting, learning about, the business aspect, so no, you're always, because things are always changing.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly. So, you're smart if you just keep listening and keep learning and,
Right. So if you were to give people advice about how to get published, what would that advice be? If someone's looking to, whether it's print or digital, what do they need to do to point them into that direction of print and digital publishing from major companies?
Well, that was one of I call my 1-2 punch. That was my one punch. The 2 punch was, I might have mentioned to you guys that I used to go to these portfolio reviews. And just imagine speed dating, but instead of meeting another opposite sex, you're trying to sell your work or show your work, and you come in and you've got your book or whatever you might have, and you got 20 minutes, and then ding, you got to run to the next guy. You're grabbing everything up, and then ding, you go to the next guy, and But if you go to a good one, these are serious people. Now, these may be. Right. I've met with several people from major publications, Sports Illustrated, only because the guy was really important and a great editor, and then bigger magazines. I met with Hallmark, and I swear I'm not being narcissistic, but the lady said, your work's too good, we can't use it for Hallmark. It's like, it's art, it's like art.
They don't want to pay that much.
No, that's true. That's true. But she said our stuff is more kitschy. I don't tell anybody that. I don't have to tell anybody, we all know it, but right. And I didn't really want my stuff on cards anyway. It's a lucrative market, but not for me. If you're doing fine art, you really don't want to do stuff like that because it kind of waters it down. And so the other punch was this portfolio review. And I'd go to them all over the country. I went to as far as, I'm in South Florida. I went all the way to California, to Palm Springs. I met with major people in the industry, galleries, publishing houses. I mentioned with Ken's representative, and his books that he publishes are works of art in themselves. I mean, they're limited editions, signed, and they're amazing. You don't even want to open them. They're so nice. And he went nuts. He loved my work so much, and he started yelling and screaming. And I'm like, whoa, this is great. A great reaction. Everybody's looking like, what's this guy doing to him, you know?
For people who don't know, tell us what exactly is a portfolio review.
Okay. So you got to sign up in advance. First of all, use Google again. There's one right now. There's the New York City Portfolio Review. So you can, I got an email today. You find them. Most important, again, look to see who the people are. Who are the reviewers? They always tell you. And again, you don't want to go to a portfolio review for fine art if you're a commercial photographer. You're going to waste your time and their time. Okay.
Right. Excellent.
You got to travel there. You got to pay a lot of money to be in, and you got to be juried in. They don't just let you get in. You got to be of a certain quality, or else, they don't want somebody coming in who shooting, with a cell phone and doesn't really, isn't up to a certain level yet.
Right.
That's all. I mean, and so the bottom line is, once you get in, you go to that place, wherever it might be, and basically everybody's ready at the door, and then everybody's sitting inside at different tables, all these people, and they've got their little name tags in there, and you sit down with them and you show them maybe 20 pieces of your work. Now, I suggest I bring 17 by 22 hand printed, I do them myself, and they're beautiful prints, because we've mentioned this a little bit, but people love that stuff. The people in the industry, they don't see it much. And they love to see a real print in their hand, especially if it's a good one. That's right. They're really impressed with that. And so that goes a long way. A lot of people bring laptops and iPads, and that's just not the way, because these people are pros and they really want to see what the work really looks like. And that's what you do. You go and you've picked them in advance. You know who you're going to see. You have an appointment with them. You have 20 minutes. I mean, literally, you get your images lined up, you know what order they're going to be in, and you got to understand that after you've seen that first one, you got to reverse them again to start with the next one. I mean, this is a trick I didn't know the first time, and I'm like a kid in school the first day, and I'm juggling my papers, and I'm like, but I figured it out. You have to have a system where after you see one, you flip them over, and then you're ready to start again. And only have what you need, show them these 20 images. They tend to talk, and if they stop you on the fourth one, you may not get to the sixth one. So you got to be leery of that as well, but you're not going to tell someone like that not to talk. The idea is you want to hear as much as you can from them. Now, I have gotten gallery shows from these people. I mean, that's the idea. People go there and get published, because this is a way to get in front of someone you'll never see. Okay, you can try to get an appointment with a major magazine. But here you're literally guaranteed, if they accept you and you pick that person, and you should pick quickly because they fill up. Okay, no, they really do. The bigger names fill up quickly. So, you join, you get one quickly, and then you're guaranteed to see that person, unless, of course, the world crumbles and they have to be somewhere where there's a big news story. That happens. But usually you get to see these major people, and I've shown my work to some really huge people in the industry. And you can't beat that. I mean, publishers of major magazines, and then next thing you know, you're on their radar.
And that's key.
Oh, it's so key.
And that's absolutely key, because I think sometimes we get caught up in, well, what am I going to get out of it right now? And forget about, you're building a relationship, and that's really what this sounds like you're doing. You're going there, investing your time, investing your resources, and investing money to do this. Yeah. And that return on your investment is you are making a contact with someone whom you would not otherwise even know that you existed or your art existed, and can possibly put you into a different trajectory for your work and your art. So
You said
I
that.
think
That's true. It's exactly true.
That is key. So with that said, what is your favorite hack? What is, like, in other words, like something you do or use that makes your photography easier? Can you share anything like that with us and what that might be?
Well, if I told you,
you'd have to kill me. Is that it?
I don't want to say that, but you know what I meant. No, of course. All right, so we're talking now about my actual images. Okay, yes, I'm going to show you. And it's funny you ask, because this we didn't practice. But all right, I love, one of my favorite things to do is to show the movement of water. Okay, that means I will go to the ocean, or I will go to a waterfall, or I will go to a river, and I will put a tripod down. And it has to be overcast, you can't be bright, but I will put the camera on the tripod and I will leave the shutter open. Could be a half a second, could be a second, depending on the light, it could be a couple seconds. And what happens is the water smooths out. And so you may see images of the ocean that, they look like images of the ocean and they may be pretty. But when I do it, if you look behind me, you can see that I definitely slow it down so that you're basically seeing the white of the water, but it's smooth and it's coming over the rocks. And it's definitely a hack that I use a lot, and it works out great. It works out great in a lot of my seascapes and in my waterfalls and my river shots and all that stuff. And to me, that's a major difference, because I know a lot of people try to do it, but it's very easy to get your images burnt out, and they look really white. And to me,
overexposed.
Yes, they're overexposed. And so for me, I'm a perfectionist with that. I'm going to take a lot of shots, and then every once in a while you get really lucky and you catch that wave. That's where the luck comes in. And you catch that wave just perfectly. And it's just going over, and it's stopped, and it's soft, and it's beautiful, and everything else is in focus. And, it's like, oh, thank you. That was the one that I was counting on. So that's my big hack as far as creating images. And again, it took me a while to figure it out. That, and I guess my jellyfish, which nobody does. But
I love your jellyfish, by the way. I was in Florida and in San Francisco, in both areas, and I photographed jellyfish, but they did not come out like that.
Well, that's my hack. I mean, if anybody wants to try to do it, I spend a lot of time with the jellyfish. I mean, I really do. I'm in those places where the tanks are, and I use a little contraption on my camera so I don't scratch the glass or I don't scratch the lens. And the problem with them is that you're using the available light. I used to shoot underwater, like we mentioned, but I couldn't get them like this. So in the aquariums, you're using available light, and the backdrop is usually very pretty, like a bluish color, but they're always moving, and the light is very low. And by photography, low light and movement does not go well, because things get blurry. Yeah. So I can get them up to, say, 36 inches or so, and they look amazing behind acrylic. And
what's your exposure on those, by the way?
Oh, forget about it. Every picture's different. Everyone's different.
Not going to give me that one.
No, I couldn't tell you. Honestly, we talk about changing every time, and depending on the place, depending on the lighting, depending on the jellyfish. I would bet if I looked at them all on the files, they'd probably all different. Because that's not one that works. And I'm testing constantly, which, is not so far-fetched from what I do out in the real world. I mean, the light changes constantly. When I'm out at the sunset, as it's getting darker, I'm flipping. You got to shoot on manual, and I'm flipping constantly. And so, every image could be a different,
Yeah, and that's the fun of it.
Yeah, no, it is.
That's the fun of it.
And you lose plenty, trust me. I lose plenty of images that I wish I hadn't lost. The ones that got away,
Harder when it was filmed, though.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, we have a question, because now we are entering our Q&A section.
Okay, cue away.
So our first question comes from Lizlo. Do you use social media to get noticed by people? If so, how? And that is the question of the day these days, because social media is, it's like what you were talking about, a way to get in front of people you never would have even touched before.
Right. And I absolutely do, Liz Lowe. I mean, to the point where my head is spinning. Okay. Yes. I have my own. I mean, I started a blog a long time ago, but I've been neglecting it because I've been working on Facebook and I've been working on Instagram and I'm also on LinkedIn. And, so between those three and MailChimp, of course. So,
you have to be on MailChimp.
Yeah. So between those four things, and I guess you could use things like Hootsuite. I used them for a while where you can send them all out. But
do you like Hootsuite or no?
It's been a while since I used it. I can't say. I know I used to use it, and I got to start again because I'm sure it's going to save me time. But as of now, I've been personally working with a couple of people, and we've been trying to get out, every day, at least a couple of Instagram posts and a couple of Facebook posts. And I have like a busy week this week. I had a gallery exhibition last night, so I had to get that out to everybody. Yeah, she mentioned the Palm Room. Well, the opening night was last night. So, it takes a couple of days to get everything hung. And, when you're in there and then everybody shows up and then you do your thing. And then, then, of course, the next thing was to get this out there on social media. So, yes, Liz Lowe, you got to do this. You got to do it constantly. It's like whenever you're not shooting and editing, you're on social media.
Yeah.
Well, and I was gonna say, I before our interview, I got to go and peruse your various social media platforms, and your Instagram is very impressive.
Good,
I was looking through that, and it gives you such a clear and immediate. People like, oh man, this guy is serious.
Yeah, thanks. I actually, and I'm now looking for curators, which is a big thing. And I did one just this week. I did one for an art Instagram page in Spain. And, I got almost 2,000. Last time I looked, there was about 2,000 likes, which is nice. I mean, that's, that guy has 250,000 followers. So, that's another way for people to use it. Go out, find a curator who does an Instagram page of what you shoot. If you shoot elephants, there's got to be 1 million of them that love, people just love elephants and they love penguins and they love whatever you shoot. I guarantee you they love it. And you'll find a page and go to that person who runs the IG page and say, look, they'll either accept some money for you to go on, $100 or whatever. And if they've got a good following, you don't go to someone who's got 10 people, but some of them, have 250,000, 1 million followers. To have your work on one post on that page is a big deal because that's a lot of eyes on your work. So either that or we testing this thing with giveaways, to like a giveaway of print to all your followers. So that's giving the owner of the page some content and some, ability to do something for their followers. I mean, a nice fine art print, worth several $100, small, I mean, that's nice for them. And so that's another way. So yes, the answer to your social media question is yes, yes, and yes. Yeah. And those are the ways I do it. Yeah.
Well, fantastic.
Right. One last question, and that really would be, if you had to describe what was the hardest thing that you've had to do so far, what would that be? And how did you fix it, or how did you get through that?
It's a good question, and I definitely have an answer ready. Of all the things that I've done and that I'd like to do more of is actually selling. And it sounds funny and obvious, but I'm someone I've sold a lot of work. I'm not complaining. I have sold a lot. I have a nice clientele. I sell 10 at a time. I've sold a piece for a yacht. One of my jellyfish is in the bow of a yacht, which is really nice.
Nice.
And I've sold to Canon Cameras. They've used an ad of mine. And so, I've sold a lot, but, I was doing it with another day job at the time. And so I wasn't focused on it. And so now I am focused, and I've gone this route where I'm trying to sell and I'm offering discounts and all that stuff. The marketing people are trying to get me to do this, and I'm doing it. But I got to tell anybody, if they're going to check my work out, I suggest you do it. If you're going to buy it, or you want a discount, buy it before the end of the year, because I don't like this. I don't think my work should be discounted. And I'm going to do a no more sale, okay? And that's my last sale. It's going to be, I'm not comfortable with it. I never did it before. You got to believe in your work, and I do. Yeah. And, people have spent good money on it before, they're going to spend good money on it again. And so although I've promised it for now on social medias, I'll fulfill that promise. And, if people want to jump in and get a quarter off, 25% or whatever I put out there, obviously I'm going to live with that. And I'm a straight shooter and I'll do all that. But starting on the 1st, I'm done because I have to feel comfortable with what I'm doing. And,
right.
You do something, you're an artist, you put your heart and soul into something, and then you send it out and you say, okay, well, you want it 25% off or 30. It's like, I know it's to get people to buy it, but at what cost? Not in that, to be no pun, 25% cost, but, that's my point. It's a cost to you because it's worth something to you and it's worth to people that have bought it before. And so I tried it, but like Mikey used to like it, I don't like it. And so I'm going to go elsewhere.
Barry, with that said, who is your ideal customer then? Who is the ideal client for Barry Greff?
Okay. Well, they love a beautiful image, number one, because with art, you have to love what you buy. When you buy something, you don't buy it just because of the artist's name. You shouldn't. I know a lot of people do with the high end, but you really got to look at it every day. And to me, that's what my work is. You can look at it every day and love it and not get bored with it and see different things in it on a different day. And so my ideal client is obviously someone who loves art, but also someone who could have paid for, a good piece of art and not going to say to me, I want to spend $100 on an image that I'm selling for $1,000, because look, think of what I put into that image. Forget about the fact that I've sold it for that amount. And when you sold for that amount, you're not going to go on the street and get a Lexus or a Mercedes and somebody's not going to hand it to you, for a fraction of the price just because they like you. They sell it. They sell it for that because it's a good quality. It's good quality. And so the same with me. The bottom line to me is the work is good quality, and therefore somebody that wants it, that's willing to pay a good amount for it because they appreciate what it is. And look, it's been vetted. It's not like you're buying blind. If you go on my website, you can see that I have all these big names. And, Canon and Magnum Photo and Ogilvy and Hahnemuhle Paper, they use my work to show off their paper, at a big expo. These people, they have 1 million photographers to go to all the time. And so if they're choosing my work, that to me is a big statement. Because Ogilvy, you know how many people work for them? They have tens of thousands of photographers. And they just picked mine. I had a guy showing my work at the time in New York. And they came out of their own box and they bought it from me and used it in one of their main offices.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
well, actually, if I could interrupt, I think we do have one more question from our audience, which is Ed Lowry asking, do photographers sell their copyrights and is this a good idea? And I believe he is talking about licensing.
Yeah, no, I understand what he's talking about. And the answer to that question is usually no. Usually no. That's a no-no. Only because once you do, it's not yours anymore. And that might seem obvious, but that means number one, you can't sell it anymore. You can't make any money on it anymore. And number two, they could use it for whatever they want. So there's a whole bunch of downsides. So number one, that image, that if it's a great image, it could have been worth a lot of money. Now, look, if you sell an image that you don't think is very good and somebody wants to give you decent money for it, okay. I'm not saying never, but I would never, I don't show those kind of images, so I wouldn't have that opportunity where somebody says, oh, I want to buy that outright. Now, okay, you want to pay 6 figures for it? All right, well, that's a different story. So there's always the
line, right? There's always the.
We all have our price. Let's say.
We all have a price. 6 figures, I might think about that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. But usually,
it is a gamble.
Because, because the life of a print, if it sells well, you can make a lot of money over the years, and you got to take that into consideration. Plus, here's the other side to them to understand: if they buy your copyright, they can use it any which way they want. And what if they use it for something really negative, and an ad for something really negative, and it's, I don't know. There's a lot of downsides to it. So I personally have never done it. And like I said, unless it was an image I wouldn't plan on selling a lot of, then I probably would not do it. I don't think it's something photographers usually do. But again, if the money's there, that's a whole different story. You know, you got to pay your bills, and you know. So,
yeah. Well, I think we're drawing to the end of our program today.
Okay.
Well, you know what? I have really appreciated you coming on our show, Barry. Thank you so much for being our guest today. It has been an absolute pleasure talking with you. Thank you for giving us all your information and your insight. I mean, I really feel like we got a really good sense of how to get started in publishing and how to approach commercial clients in this way. I think that has been fantastic. So thank you.
Oh, I appreciate that. And let me say this for your listeners. A couple of things. You're gonna give out my info, I'm assuming, and they're gonna know how to reach me and all that stuff.
Of course.
And you know, I'm hoping that I'm not gonna have a million people calling or emailing, but I'm the kind of guy that I love to talk about my work. As you can see, you got to shut me up by shutting the button. And so I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind talking to people, your listeners. You know, because we didn't have that much time. If I can help somebody in this regard, you know, and of course, if anybody wants to buy, I'm not going to turn them away either. But you know,
absolutely
anything. I love my photography. As you can tell, it's a passion. I think to be good at anything, you have to be passionate, and I am very passionate about my photography. So, you know, anybody wants to reach out, there's emails we're going to be given, or you're going to be given my websites. I have a portfolio site with the big, beautiful pictures that I've used for a long time. And then I've got a sales site, which I've been trying. And, you know, the jury's still out. We'll see how that works. But, you know, I'm going to still try. And like I said, I'm always going to sell my work. But the question is whether I'm going to really be discounting it or not. I don't know. I'm kind of back and forth with that. You know, and I'm just maybe I'm tired. I just had a gallery show last night. I'm probably exhausted.
You'll wake up tomorrow and you won't even. You'll be like, "What did I say? What did I say about that?
Did I say that? Wait a minute. No,
I've got a sales site. I'm keeping my
that
site.
wasn't me. Oh no, I'm going to always have a sales site. The question is, you know, the constant discounting and stuff. I don't know. You know, I'm not saying it's not. It's probably for a lot of people. I just don't know if it's for me. And the reason I say that is because I have sold at full price forever.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
And I think, you know, I think that just goes. You have to know who you are as an artist, and I talk about this a lot. You can't get to level B until you know who you are.
Right.
You know, A, B, and C. Mm-hmm. You know, right. So if you know who you are as an artist, then you do what you do as an artist. That's what got you to where you are. And that's why you're on this podcast, imparting your knowledge to the rest of us. And and we appreciate all that you have given to us in terms of being able to figure these things out and your kernels of information that you have provided.
Well, I'm glad.
So Ryan, I throw it to you now.
All right. Well, hey, I want to send a thank you to our listeners and everyone who participated in our show today. Thank you to Barry for being our guest today. And if you want to learn more about him and his extensive work in photography, please visit his website, www.barrygreff.com. And you can also follow him on Facebook and Instagram. All right. And I think that concludes it for today.
Well, thank you guys. Great job.
Thank you for joining us. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you, Barry, for joining us.
My pleasure. Take care, everybody.
How Do Artists is a live stream podcast hosted and produced by Ryan Caldwell and Karlana Pedersen. Our theme song, How to Live, by Bird Garden featuring Rogers and Cooper, was written by Ryan Cooper, Anna Rogers, and Ryan Caldwell. The How Do Artists logo, illustrations, and art design were created by Karlana Pedersen. Tune into our live streams and stay up to date by following us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. For more information about Ryan Caldwell, visit ryancaldwellmusic.com. And for more information about Karlana Pedersen, visit karlana.com. Tune in next time, and thanks for listening.